Good afternoon, everybody joining us from the East Coast. Good morning to everybody joining us from the West Coast. We are here today to talk about digital evidence management and what is new in QuickDME 3.5, our digital evidence management and workflow solution. Today, it will be myself, Larry Compton, digital media expert for Ocean Systems, joined by our Vice President, Charles Garino, will be joining us as well. I wanted to right away discuss questions and answers. If you're not familiar with the GoToWebinar questions panel, it's available through the GoToWebinar control panel view menu. Make sure you have the questions panel open, and you can pull it off and expand it if you'd like, and submit questions throughout the webinar. We'll try to take time at the end to address as many of those questions as we can. So make sure you have that questions panel available to you. So digital evidence management, really what we're talking about here is all types of digital asset management and some of the common issues that people deal with when managing digital evidence, which all of you are, I'm sure, intimately familiar with. But some of those include having digital evidence stored in different units and different places throughout your agency or multiple agency integration type scenarios. Bottlenecks created by some of the existing processes where evidence is stored in a particular silo or only certain people can access that evidence or even ingest evidence, things of that nature. A limited number of technicians and analysts who are properly trained and qualified to be processing digital evidence very often creates backlogs causing substantial delays. So digital asset management solutions can help with that. And in particular, QuickDME is a very unique digital asset management solution for those that are brand new to us, as you'll see. Proprietary digital CCTV files, often problematic, of course, for a number of reasons, but we have built in a number of features in QuickDME to help you deal with those proprietary files that you can't open in standard media players and things of that nature. So we have built in a lot of our intelligence regarding that, as well as providing a way to disseminate your digital evidence fully electronically with complete auditing of all actions and transactions. So without digital evidence management, a digital evidence management solution that has the capability to touch all of these different things and audit all of these different things, you really end up with these big silos of information sitting alone and not being able to leverage that. So some solutions, most of the solutions that you see out there in this space today are cloud-based storage solutions or specific to a particular product, such as an in-car recording system management tool, body-worn, so on and so forth. So you end up with these silos of data. But the cloud aspect is an interesting one to discuss briefly, because if you migrate to a cloud solution, don't forget to think about what happens after or later down the road. If I want to move away from this solution, what do I need to do? How do I get my assets out of there? How do I get my metadata out of there? And how do we get it into a new solution? And we'll show you why QuickDME is unlike any other digital asset management solution out there and how it addresses all of those scenarios. So when we start really digging into QuickDME and digital evidence management, we really should start at the very beginning. What are you doing today? How are your processes hindering you today? What can be automated and improved, from hashing, copying, burning disks, so on and so forth? And QuickDME can help. It is more flexible and customizable than any other digital evidence solution I've come across today. It's entirely up to you how you want it to work. It can be a very simple single workstation solution, or a small lab solution that's on a dedicated private network, or deployed throughout your entire agency or multiple agencies very cost effectively because of our dynamic licensing. We can automate processes like those hashing, copying, burning disk things, automatically purging non-evidence stuff after a given period, like in-car and body-worn type non-evidence. We can leverage all of your existing resources. So if you already have the storage, you already have the network infrastructure, agency cloud accounts, so on and so forth, you don't need to go out and buy cloud storage. You don't need to sign long-term contracts for cloud storage to store and manage your digital evidence. Our software, QuickDME, will sit between the user and your evidence, your storage, your network, so such that QuickDME becomes the single point of access to all of those assets, and everything that you do within the solution is completely audited. So you have a detailed history of everything that's going on. And of course, I mentioned the manage and associate proprietary digital CCTV players, and you'll see that here in the demo momentarily. But the ability to have separate associations for these proprietary digital CCTV files is huge, especially because there are a plethora, if you've been doing this for any length of time, hundreds of different proprietary players. File formats, versions of those players that are specific to certain files, even from the same manufacturer. So it can get very convoluted very, very fast. QuickDME can help us manage those players as well as all of these types of issues very effectively. It's essentially just a matter of looking at your scenario today, understanding where your pain points are, and we can mimic everything that you're doing today. So for instance, if you want your your assets, stored in a specific structure, by year, then by case number, by collector, who collected the evidence, so on. We can mimic that exact storage structure such that you don't even have to move any of your assets to leverage QuickDME. All of the obvious stuff like agency information, logos, case pattern, system settings like do you want everyone to add keywords to their files, which we call tagging when you bring assets in, and I'll show you that momentarily. Do we want to auto-delete the files that have been verified once they're ingested into QuickDME? Do we want to auto-delete those from the original source, such as that temporary flash drive you plugged in to ingest the evidence? We can delete those files from the original source after we've copied and hashed into the solution. Custom form fields. This is a huge capability of QuickDME because you can leverage custom form fields for anything you want, and we provide up to 20 custom form fields for your case form and another 20 specific to your downloads. For every time you ingest evidence, you have 20 custom fields. So you can set up custom fields to assign work and search by those custom fields to see what you're assigned. You can set up custom fields to indicate, who's the requesting agency, if you accept cases from outside agency, so on and so forth. Custom fields can really be leveraged for just about any type of workflow issue you're dealing with today. So the solution, it's important to understand, is based on crime types. Again, very customizable. We ship with a slew of default crime types and subclassifications or incident types under each of those crime types. You can customize all of them. Create your own crime types, your own incident types that are specific to you in your region. But those crime types control what we do in a particular scenario or how you handle a particular type of evidence. So if it's this type of crime, do this. If it's that type of crime, do that. So incident and classification is going to be required. Do we have to automatically burn to disk? And if so, that's all automated based on the type of crime that you're ingesting into the system. No longer do you need a qualified technician or analyst just to burn your evidence to disk or to get your evidence into your evidence solution. All of that is automated and very easy to use, as you'll see. And I've already mentioned the auto purging, but it's a huge capability when dealing with non-evidence digital assets, such as in-car or body-worn assets that haven't been declared as evidence because there was no incident. So what's new in QuickDME 3.5 then? Well, one of the big things is our new Send To feature that has been updated to include 11 default FFmpeg Send To options. So those familiar with QuickDME and Access DME know that we've had the ability for quite some time to right-click on an asset and set up custom send-tos so that you can send those assets out to third-party solutions for processing. So I can quickly right-click, send to Photoshop to clarify an image with Clear ID or video. I can send stuff out to Adobe Audition, so on and so forth. Now we have built-in 11 default FFmpeg options for very common processing tasks like the ones you see on your screen, rewrapping to MP4, creating an uncompressed AVI, lossless H.264, extracting iframes. So we'll demonstrate some of these default FFmpeg actions, but even more importantly maybe is for advanced users that are familiar with FFmpeg and have FFmpeg installed locally. Now you can set up and create your own presets leveraging your FFmpeg installation. So all of these default FFmpeg send-tos can be deleted or restored at any time. You can't edit these ones, but you can delete or restore them if you have the appropriate permissions at any time. And then the capabilities are just expanding exponentially. When we look at container and streams report or want a frame information report for all metadata on a particular frame of a file, etc. Case and download notes. Brand new feature that was a user requested. Essentially, the initial user request was for simple text notes on case fields and download records so that they could keep track of various information and try and leverage QuickDME more as a case management system than an asset management system. So we expanded on that and we included the ability to add public and private notes color-coded by user. We can add notes to specific frames of video that play within our QuickView player. We can export those notes as HTML or PDF. So what does that mean to us? Well, it means that not only can QuickDME be leveraged for a case management type of solution as well, but we can quickly bring video in, review it, add notes to individual frames, and export out a PDF with our notes and thumbnails of those frames right within that PDF file. So a very cool new feature that we've introduced with version 3.5 you'll see here momentarily. A ton of new search features have been added, such as the ability to export your search results to a text file, to save and load specific searches that you perform quite regularly. So if you're looking for instance, you have a custom search that you like to use to see what cases have been assigned to you based on a custom field, for instance, you can load that search as soon as you open Access DME and see those cases immediately. You can search case numbers now during ingest as well. So when you're ingesting evidence through Quick Downloader, we've added a case search feature there. Again, a user requested feature. Tons of new admin features added to expedite and further simplify management of the evidence, such as new Evidence Explorer, reveal file, and verified data integrity options for administrators. Archive and restore has been updated such that we can restore and still retain the archive zip files, and we can restore to different archive locations on your network now. No longer have to restore to your primary archive location. We've added the ability to assign override permissions to multiple users simultaneously, added a new section or unit field to the personnel file so that people can be grouped into sections and units. The personnel list is now color-coded, so you get a quick look at who has permissions assigned and who doesn't. Another big key feature introduced with 3.5 is the new Synology NAS integration. This effectively allows us to provide a turnkey solution with Synology NASs, network attached storage devices. So Synology, one of the worldwide leaders in network attached storage devices, provides a slew of solutions that are proven and cost effective, including encryption while data is at rest, and all kinds of advanced options. Of course, expandability and redundancy being a key. So if you're looking for a turnkey solution, we can provide QuickDME software and all of the necessary hardware to set your lab up with an asset management solution that completely conforms to your workflow. We talked a little bit about cloud dissemination. So if your agency is using Amazon Web Services storage or Dropbox account, you can leverage those accounts to disseminate assets fully electronically right from Access DME. And all of that information is audited. So anytime someone with permissions disseminates via the cloud, that is audited, of course. That ability includes the ability to password protect those files, to set expiration dates, to have QuickDME auto-delete those files from your cloud account after those expiration dates, and more. Linkable locations was introduced a few versions back, and linkable locations is the feature that allows you to manage evidence from other locations within your network quite easily. So for instance, I can add a location such as in-car video storage or body-worn video storage or computer forensics evidence storage as a linkable location, and only bring those assets into QuickDME when I need to or when I want to manage them through QuickDME, which is huge. We have a customer with several hundred that has QuickDME deployed across several hundred users, and their computer forensics unit, of course, has these huge image files from imaging digital evidence devices, and they can link to those rather than having to move all of that data and still manage them through QuickDME. Custom search capabilities continue to expand within Access DME, including the Boolean search, which allows you to build and set up, very complex or situations when you're searching for assets or cases. But the real power, in my personal opinion, is being able to search those custom fields. So when I set up a custom field, like in the example I mentioned earlier, who's assigned this case, then I can just search for my cases off from that custom field. So you'll see that capability as well. Lots of interface improvements in the last couple versions here, including performance improvements, the ability to filter items, updated right-click context menus, trying to make things easier and quicker to access that you are leveraging on a regular basis. Saving layout preferences within the interface, and more. Our QuickView video player continually getting updated to have more capability for processing proprietary files, as well as more capabilities such as the new snapshot notes feature, which we're going to show you here momentarily. Tells you the frame types you're viewing, has audio metering right within the QuickView player interface, and more. We've mentioned the detailed audit records for everything, but including, don't forget those send to options, all of that's audited. So you see everything that's been done to an asset by those who have permissions to access or copy, print, burn from those assets. Reporting and statistics, this is another huge one that I, quite frankly, early in my career, late 90s, in regards to digital evidence anyways, early in my career, but in the late 90s, I was involved in a regional lab and working for multiple agencies. And there was a big push to go to digital evidence management at that time, and I'll be honest with you, I was against it. I fought to say that this isn't necessary. We have policies and procedures in place, and that was over 20 years ago, folks, and things have changed dramatically. We have so many silos of data and information now that a true asset management program that can reach out to all of those locations and bring all of that data into one interface is extremely powerful. I can run an inventory report, see all of the cases for a given period of time, what types of cases they were, what types of assets are being stored for those cases, how much storage is being used, so on and so forth. That's an incredibly powerful feature in and of itself from QuickDME. A few other things like the email notifications, so users can, given permission, set up their own custom rules-based notifications. If I'm assigned a case, send me an email. If you know, I want to see this type of crime, any evidence ingested for homicides or what have you, I get an email notification, all customizable by the user themselves. Our derivative workflow. Huge improvements have been made over the last couple of releases, and we have many more planned and coming to further our efforts to make QuickDME the workflow solution that you need. So when you bring in your original evidence and you begin to create derivatives, you can associate those derivatives directly with the original asset and quickly and easily tell which isn't a derivative folder and which is an original asset folder through color coding. So you can see over on the right here, those light blue folders are my derivatives, and they're associated with a very specific download, whereas that original asset. All of that can be done automatically. That player manager feature, which I'm going to show off here momentarily, but we have added the ability in last release to create associations specific to that download. So I'm going to show that feature where I have a 264 file, for instance, associated with a player, but it's associated specific to that download such that when I ingest another 264 file from another proprietary system that isn't the same type of 264, it's not automatically associated, and I can create a new association for that particular file. And then, of course, we have basic image redaction features, another thing that we're going to be expanding on and improving our redaction capabilities, but you can quickly and easily add text and blur out information and automatically bring that derivative right back in as part of that process. So with all of that said, let's take a quick look at the solution. I am going to exit out of the presentation here, and we're going to ingest some evidence. I want to point out a few things. New with Quick Downloader and 3.5 is now we have a right-click context menu integration with Windows. So you can select any folder from your device and just ingest using Quick Downloader. Of course, you still have Quick Downloader running in your taskbar, so you can browse to evidence that way. And it's going to auto-detect drives, disks, anything connected to your computer. So if you insert a disk with evidence or plug in a thumb drive, it's going to automatically come up and ask you if you want to ingest evidence from that source. And you can control that auto detect list now in QuickDME 3.5. Which drives do I want to auto detect, which drives don't I, and turn it off. I'm going to use the right-click context menu and just ingest this Swan DVR file. So I right-click ingest, it's going to scan those assets and give you the information window down here in the lower right. It says, okay, I've scanned the assets, and do you want to ingest to a single case, or do you have evidence for multiple cases you're ingesting? This is just a single case ingest, so I'll go ahead and select single case, and that brings up our Quick Downloader content preview window. And this is where our case forms are and our download forms. So when I'm ingesting evidence, I can force people to use certain fields or not. The yellow fields are required, the white ones aren't required. I'm going to create a new case for this and just call it Swan. I've put something into this case previously, so it brought that asset or that address automatically up, as well as the type of crime, where I can select which type of crime it is. And based on this type of crime, it might say you have to also choose what type of incident. It's all customizable depending on your scenario. I can add comments to this, such as example case with Swan DVR recording, or what have you. I've got a custom field here that says, does this require processing? Now you could put this on the case or on the particular download and then search for whether or not something requires processing. Do you accept evidence from other agencies? Well, I've added a few custom fields to say, hey, who was the submitting agency? My police department etc. So you can have your agency contact, phone, email, all of these things completely customizable. Custom fields can be text fields, they can be numeric fields, date fields, or drop-down list fields, so you have complete control over those. And then I just tab through those fields that aren't required. As I get to my download form itself for every ingest, it automatically populates with the case address. If that's not the case, I can change it here. And then it's who collected this? Well, I collected it myself, so I'll just enter my user ID, tab to the next field. Today is the date I collected it. Who's ingesting it? Well, I'm ingesting it. So I'll just tab through there. And then I've got comments for this particular download record, and I can add Swan DVR.264 or whatever. Does this include video? Yes. Well, now I can search for any case that includes video evidence. I could have this requires processing down here, or technician assigned, so on and so forth. Completely customizable based on your needs. And then I simply click begin downloading, and Quick Downloader begins doing its thing. It's going to hash that original evidence, as you can see. It's going to copy it to my network storage location, hash it there, and then pop up and say, do you want to print a property sheet? This again is a optional sheet, but I'll show you an example here of a property sheet. So we'll just save this to my desktop. And the property sheet was another user requested feature that simply gives us a summary of the assets that I've ingested. It's not required, it's entirely optional. Once that's printed, I've also set it such that anytime I do an ingest, I'm going to force the user to do tagging or add keywords to their assets. In this particular case, I have a proprietary 264 file that I just ingested. It's showing me the thumbnail, and I can add some keywords or key phrases to this particular asset. Requires proprietary Swan Viewer, or whatever I want to add. I can even mark the asset sensitive such that those without the proper permissions won't be able to see it. So if you're using, dealing with child exploitation stuff, so on and so forth, only those with the ability to see sensitive items and administrators would be able to see it. You'll notice we have a quick text window, so when you're dealing with multiple assets, you can reuse keywords and phrases that you've used before. And you have this metadata information window. Because this is a proprietary 264 file, we couldn't scrape the metadata, but we still provide our MD5 hash and all of this in your metadata window. For typical assets that it can read, it's going to show you all of your excess tool metadata information built right into this metadata window. Once I'm happy with whatever keywords I've entered, I simply hit enter, ask me if I'd like to save. Yes, I do. Do I want to print the log? Sure. So I'll show you what the particular tagging log would look like. Since we only have one asset, it's not going to be a very, a detailed log, but essentially brings up another report that shows every asset, all the keywords, the hash, all of that right within my report. So for every ingest, you have that detailed information. Again, completely customizable whether or not you want to do that. Once I click save those changes, it tells me whether or not my download completed successfully. In this case, it did. So we've just gone through the assets ingest, and one of the things I failed to mention was the searching for cases when we ingest, but that's okay because now we also, in 3.5, have the ability to ingest using Quick Downloader right from the file menu. So you don't have to go down and browse anymore, so on and so forth. You can get right to that ingest using Quick Downloader from the file menu. So where's my Swan case? Well, this is Access DME, which is the end user application for viewing assets. And real quick, I'll give you an overview of the interface for those entirely new. We have our search field over on the left, our quick view field, which is where we play video, see our assets, our items window, which will provide detailed list down below. And over on the right, we have several tabs, our case tab, our download tab, and down below, our file metadata and audit information tab. All of these tabs can be pulled off onto separate displays, resized to whatever you like, and then saved in your settings. You can save your layout such that it'll load that layout every time you come in. I'm going to do a search for all cases since I had this open when I did the ingest. It didn't see that. And there's my SWAN case with that SWAN asset that I just ingested, this .264 file. In this case, in my items window, I have it in thumbnail. I can go to list or tree view and see the actual folder structure for the assets ingested, which is another important thing to point out, is that we maintain the folder structures of your digital evidence as it's ingested. That is an option. You could turn that off if you want, but a lot of times our digital evidence is structured in a very particular folder structure, and if you move things around, things like proprietary players for digital CCTV files just won't work. So we maintain that folder structure by default such that when you copy it out or disseminate, all of that's maintained by default. We can filter using various categories like image files, video files, so on and so forth. So when we have hundreds of assets in this list, they're very easy to find. Notes. We added the new note-taking capability to both case and download folders. So when you select a case folder, I can add simple text notes to a case. Here is another note. And maintain this list of notes. Now you'll see I have this delete option over here, but that's because I'm an administrator. Non-administrators wouldn't even see the word delete over here. Only those with the appropriate permissions can delete notes. Notes can be private, such that only administrators and the author will see those notes. And we can add formatting to notes so that we can do things like, bold and text colors and so on and so forth by using the text editor option to add your note. So when we browse through some cases, you'll see where I've added notes to some of these. Here's a frame of video that I did some notes from. Here's an HTML formatted note, and here's the color coding where different users have added notes, such as Joe Friday and Cornelius Crunch. So proprietary files, downloads. Let's take a quick look at the associated player features and adding notes on a frame. My network's hosing me a little bit here. I'm drawing assets down from the server, and it's scanning and bringing those assets in for me. And so if I go into, for instance, a proprietary AVR file, in this case, QuickView can parse this proprietary AVR file right within the player. And I've also made an association to this player such that I can right-click and open it with that particular player. Let's take a look at another one. Here's a Night Owl system, another 2.4, where I've made an association, file association, because I have the permission. So I can view this file not only in QuickView, but I can view it in the actual associated player for that particular proprietary file type, which I highly recommend you do no matter who you are when dealing with proprietary digital CCTV evidence. It is absolutely imperative that you not only access it through the software designed to play it. You certainly don't want to go into court and say, I never bothered to look at this file with the software designed to parse this particular file format. So we give you these player manager capabilities and the ability to share those players in the solution. Other options, though, include the ability to open it in QuickView or do send to actions. So I could send this out to do a container and streams report. Give me some metadata information on this particular file from FFmpeg FFprobe. So FFprobe's going to build my container and streams report, and here it is opening on my other screen. If you're familiar with FFmpeg, you'll be very familiar with this. It's simply the output parsed from FFmpeg. Here's our container information, and this is our stream information. So we can see the type of stream, so on and so forth, how many streams. So very easy to access that report. And of course, that frame information report. So if I wanted to actually export an XML file with the detailed information pertaining to every sample within the file of audio and video, regardless of stream, I can export that out as an XML file and review that report in Excel and see all of those fields. So this is opening by default to my browser, but if I go and open that file in Excel, it'll be parsed where every column will show that detailed information. Well, maybe I just want to rewrap this asset to MP4 so that others can disseminate it or to disseminate it. I'll just FFmpeg rewrap, save it into my derivatives folder, boom, it's done, and now I can come up and add that derivative. So at the moment, the FFmpeg send-tos aren't automated, but here's that improved derived from field. It's automatically associated itself with the download that I was working in. I can add, this is an MP4 rewrap of the original, and then finish my download form when I'm ingesting it. Notes, includes video, boom. So when I do, oh, I didn't select my folder. I better cancel out of there. So you have to select where you're ingesting your evidence. I'm trying to rush through here for you, but essentially, let's see, it'll cancel out here momentarily. It's trying to scan my whole computer at the moment because I had my computer selected. So I apologize for that. So let me go back to File, Add Derivative. Gotcha, gotcha. I know, can't ingest all those. Can't do all of that. So let me just go, I gotcha. I gotcha. All right, it's back. Jeepers. I almost tried to ingest everything in my, so let me go to derivatives, rewrap, MP4, includes yes, and make sure my derivatives folder is selected. Oop, yeah, forgot a required field. And now it's ingested those derivatives. My apologies for trying to rush ahead for the sake of time here, but here's my derivative automatically associated with that original asset. So I can come over and see that MP4 file and play that MP4 file in QuickView the same way, and then distribute this either through the cloud by going File, Upload to Content to the cloud, who I'm releasing it to, password protect it, tell it when to expire, include the hash report so that the dissemination has those that hash information, etc. And at the end of that process, it provides you a nice convenient link to share with those who need access to that information. So again, very quickly and easily get in and do things like reviewing a file and adding notes on a frame. So here I've added several, but I can go through a file and say I want to add a note, and automatically just brings up that frame with the exact file name, the time and position within the file. My notes go here, and then I can simply say OK. And I've added another note to my download. My notes go here, and export that PDF out such that I can share it with others to see my remarks on it, specific frames. And let me go and grab that. And my derivatives, I've got 60 windows open here trying to do this, but here's my derivatives folder and that PDF of my notes. So all of my notes include the frame information and everything you saw within the interface. That can be exported as HTML as well, and it's portable. So the images are embedded within the HTML file. You just have that single HTML file or single PDF to share and disseminate. Some of the admin features for administrators of the system are the ability to actually see the file and browse the evidence now on the Evidence Explorer. And so I think my, yeah, there we go. Just delaying a little bit, but so now I can see the assets as they sit on the actual storage server, and we've built in other administrative features such that you can actually browse that evidence storage feature. If you don't have administrative permissions assigned, in most cases these options aren't displayed if you don't have administrative permissions assigned to see things like verifying dates or verifying data, regenerating thumbnails, etc. But very simple and easy to use way of managing those assets. And so we talked about the case notes, the download notes, the updated player manager, the send tos, the new default send tos. Those were the really big ticket items that were requested by end users that allow your workflow to be expedited exponentially, consolidating and bringing everything into one interface for management and playback. So let's see here. Where are we at, Charles? Any questions or anything else you wanted to take a look at real quick? I haven't been able to keep an eye on the questions as I'm talking here.
We just had one about integration with computer forensics software that you addressed while we were going through.
Oh, okay.
If other folks want to chime in with questions, we're going to start getting around to doing that soon.
Yeah, so really it depends on your scenario, and that's the difficult thing about a product like QuickDME, because it is a software-only solution. And when we start talking about other asset management solutions on the market, I don't like to, everybody has strengths and weaknesses. I'm not trying to knock anybody, but be sure you're considering your overall expense and longevity of that solution, and what happens if you move away from that solution. Who has my evidence? How do I get it? How do I get the metadata from it? With QuickDME, all of that is yours. The evidence is yours. It's stored exactly the way you want, and if you walked away tomorrow, guess what? All of your evidence is stored still exactly the way you want, and you have all of your hash information stored with it. Plus, your SQL database is still your SQL database, and you have all of that metadata information. So that's one of the very big benefits of a solution like QuickDME. It really can conform to what your current environment is and what requirements you have from a single user all the way on up through domain-wide distributions. That dynamic licensing by default allows such that, if you have 3 licenses, you can install QuickDME on 1,000 computers. It's only going to pull a license when it absolutely needs that license to launch the application. So, 1,000 computers with the software doesn't cost you any more than just putting it on the 3.
So we do have a couple of questions chiming in here. One is, can you import files that have already had processing applied and associate that file with the original evidence?
Yes,
so basically,
absolutely.
can you something's been processed, can you just make a derivative? Here's a case. Cases have uploads or ingest folders, which are yellow, and then derivatives are blue. So if somebody has processed something already, I guess this is more of a transitionary type question of, how to get what they already have into the system and get things ingested and associated as derivatives. Go ahead.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. You can do that. So if you've already generated your derivatives, it's as simple as going up to File, Add Derivatives, and pointing it to those derivatives. And when you do that, it brings up that derivative window where you can associate it to the original download under that particular case. So that's automatically associated for you to that particular download. So existing derivatives that you've done can be brought in no problem, associated with the original assets that you've already brought in, and still have, all access to all of those records.
So the next question is there. Whoops. Go ahead.
Go ahead. Oh, no, you got another
Were
question?
you done with that one? So the next question was, does it integrate with Input ACE? There's the send to feature lets you send to, Photoshop, Input ACE, any exe type command line program that'll accept a send to, you can integrate it with.
Yes. Now, those that have that product know that it's not a traditional EXE deployed product, and so creating a send to is a bit problematic. We had created and still provide a default option for that particular product because it's not as easy as just creating a send to by going send to associations, add, and pointing to the EXE. So by default, QuickDME still ships with a send to in there for Input ACE. You'll notice that I have send tos in here. I have one for Photoshop, I have another for Audition, and some other solutions. And if people have access to the send to feature and don't have those programs installed locally on their computer, they don't show up in their right-click send to. So when they go right-click here, send to, if I had an Input ACE or a Photoshop send to, and I didn't have it installed on this system, well, it's not going to show that option here because I don't have the software on this particular system. So very, very flexible as far as creating and managing those send to associations. These default FFmpeg associations can be deleted. I can go ahead and delete any of these default associations. If I don't want my users to have access to it, I could go through and delete them all. Well, what if I want to restore them sometime? Not a problem. Just click reset. It's going to put those default FFmpegs right back into your send to list. All other associations that you manually create, you can edit, access, create till you're blue in the face, if that's what you want to do. So very, very flexible, which is the goal of our solution, is to provide such flexibility that you don't have to, if you don't need to, invest in cloud storage. You don't need to invest in hardware and infrastructure to manage the digital evidence that you already are in possession of today and have spread throughout your organization in different units and groups. One of the things I didn't get a chance to show, I wanted to show for those that I see a few familiar names in the list here that are already leveraging QuickDME in their organizations, some rather large ones. And so one of the things I wanted to talk a little bit about, another feature in the 3.5 release is on this personnel tab. We added the section unit. So now every user has a section unit declaration, and we can just simply add forensics and click save, and now that user is assigned to the forensics unit. And I can sort these columns in the personnel list and see them by unit. You'll notice this one's highlighted in red, and that's because this particular user I added doesn't have any permissions assigned. So it's just telling me, hey, you need to assign this guy permissions if you want him to have permissions. By default, you can have the system set such that anybody can ingest evidence. They don't need to be trained. That's the beauty. Anybody can walk up to a system with Quick Downloader, ingest from a thumb drive, a disk, an external hard drive, or what have you, and walk through your forms, and it's all going to be standardized and automated for them. They don't need special training to do that. If you want it automatically burnt to disk for a particular crime type, all of that happens automatically, my friends. So it's a very simple way to allow everyone in the agency to contribute and leverage your asset management. So I have the ability to basically allow people to override certain features, delete evidence, so on and so forth through the settings. Also within the settings is the ability to define what our file type categories include. We ship by default with some very most commonly accepted file types under each category, and you can just continue to add to this list. And as you do, so for instance, let's look at the videos list, and you'll see our default video file formats that QuickView is going to support. This also has to do with our statistics. So if you define proprietary formats like I have here, RE4, DRV, so on and so forth, and some others, those all get associated with the video category. If they're not defined in one of these categories, they get defined in the other category. But the other thing it does for you is, for instance, RE4 can now play right in QuickView because FFmpeg can parse it. RE4 can now open and play right in QuickView. So on the archive with 3.5, we introduced the ability to restore archives to a different location. To also, in this particular installation, I don't have any archives saved, but I can manage my archive, see that archive location, how much storage is available, so on and so forth. But I can now restore cases that have been archived, they'd all be listed here, to a different location, and I can even choose to keep the original archived zip file after restoration. That way I'm doubly safe, doubly protected. Everything's still there from the original archive even after restoration. Another user requested feature. So management of dissemination, you can see I've done a number of cloud disseminations that automatically expired. When these expire, they automatically delete the assets from the cloud solution based on that expiration date. So you don't have to go and manage your cloud account to make sure that things are getting deleted and freeing up space. QuickDME is going to do that for you. Any other questions I missed, Charles?
I'm just answering one right here that says, can you ingest an attachment directly from an email, which I can catch up with you after the webinar to understand better what you think that might look like, because I think, and correct me if I'm wrong, Larry, you'd probably need to take that attachment out of the email and put it in a logical place that you could then ingest, because I don't know how you would browse to the attachment in the email. So interesting concept. I'd like to learn more about what the actual workflow for that would be. Speaking of which, you know, QuickDME, to those that are new to seeing it, just to give you a little bit of background, 3.5 is, you know, far from the first release of this. This has been a product in development for over 3 years, and started off as basically a photo-based digital asset manager, and we have worked diligently over the last 3 years to make QuickDME a product that you really would think, like, why would I not want to have something like that? It's going to allow you to implement and standardize your accumulated knowledge of how you want to process your digital evidence at your agency, if it's just you individually, all the way up to somebody that wants to set up kiosk ingest stations and get email notifications that this video. So it's got this wide range of implementation now because of the advancements that we've made in it. And you can kind of see where this is going to go in the future, right? It's a hub and spoke workflow solution that, you know, we're trying to make your jobs easier, right? So you don't need to do the nail pinging grunt work of remembering, and, you know, and I might have made a mistake and I spelled this like this and I just put the year before that. You know, if you know how you want your evidence stored, you set it up. That's how your evidence is going to get stored. We now have the ability to, pardon me?
What's just like Ron Popeil, set it and forget it. Right.
Set it and forget it, right? So you're going to, you know, you're either going to go out and collect multiple cases, come back with a drive. We've got the ability for you to set up your ingest for multiple cases, click ingest, and it's going to process it. You go on to the next thing. It now has the ability to do the file export rewrapping, MPEG-4, your iframes, that type of thing, and have them checked in as derivatives. The next logical step to that might be, hey, could you just make the derivatives for me on ingest? Well, stay tuned.
Right.
I think we're going to have something like that pretty soon.
Right. If you don't mind, Charles, I just wanted to add in that regard, you may have noticed that, if, for instance, in the photos here, we have that ability when I do a redaction today. So if I do let's say I was going to do an image redaction, I have the permissions to do that, and I bring it up, and I have my redaction workflow, description, blah, 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 and I bring up and do an image redaction. Once I've done this redaction on this image and click Save and Close, boom, my asset and derivative is automatically created. That same thing can be logically carried on, of course, to our FFmpeg. So when we, our FFmpeg send tos, excuse me. So when we go FFmpeg send to and utilize some of the default options, obviously the next logical step is to automatically bring that back in rather than having you go up and go File, Add Derivative. That'll always be an option, that Add Derivative option, to manually do it, but we're going to eventually automate that as well, is what Charles was talking about. So just another way to expedite the entire process for you. And I know we're running short on time, but I did want to mention, it looks like we got to the majority of the questions. I did want to mention an upcoming Omnivore update that I think many people are going to be excited about, and that is going to be released soon. It's in alpha testing right now, but the Omnivore Viewer will be providing the ability to, of course, open and do some of those common processing tasks right from the Omnivore Viewer. So traditionally, the Omnivore Viewer, as you may know, has only been able to open our files, the OMV and OMVA files. So let me go real quick and just take a quick look at this. But now we'll be able to come down, choose FFmpeg supported files, and when I select a file that's FFmpeg, it's automatically going to bring up our FFmpeg convert window and allow you to convert things that FFmpeg can parse to uncompressed AVI or uncompressed MOV, lossless H.264, compressed formats, all right from the Omnivore Viewer. Oh, by the way, something pretty cool is the ability to save that log and actually see the FFmpeg command and log as you do that. So I'm just going to save this. Well, I'll add a little frame counter in my lower right-hand corner, and I'll save that log. You see FFmpeg's output. You have the file generated for you and the ability to save this log file as a text. I'll throw that on my desktop, and it's going to contain the entire log that you see here from the feedback from FFmpeg right within your log. So again, opening on my other display, but so there's my FFmpeg, Omnivore Viewer, FFmpeg converter, and everything that it did for you there. So keep an eye out for that. I am pretty sure that that one will be well received because it's going to save people a lot of time dealing with proprietary files and other files as well. All right, so nearing the end here, we just want to make sure that you are aware of updates to our website. We have implemented a new support center on our website where you can see what's new, get direct access to the software, download free trials right from any one of the products. In fact, I could show you that tab. And where to, let me bring that over. So here I am.
Yeah, while Larry's going there, since we do have a lot of current customers online with us, just wanted to highlight the fact we did release a new detective release, Detective 8.0, with some updates, and one of the bigger ones was something that was an upgrade to Spotlight. That's now called Spotlight Redact, and it gives you the ability in a single Spotlight plugin to track and animate spotlights for 4 different targets. So you can turn them on, turn them off, wipe them, that type of thing.
And also get a download on the free trial. So everything's able to be downloaded as a free trial, with the exception, of course, of Omnivore, which is a hardware-based utility. And under the new support center, you can get to all of the downloads through the downloads page. which will list all of the current versions currently shipping, as well as their release history and release notes. So you have quick, easy access to that. New knowledge base on the site as well, so making it even easier to find frequently asked questions and information regarding products. If you go right to the product, and it'll list some of the most common FAQs for that particular product under the tabs section right underneath each
Hey Larry, real
product.
quick, could you tell them about the new fundamentals class you're doing?
Yeah, absolutely. So coming up in April is our first 3-day new Fundamentals of Video Recovery and Processing class. So this is the first instance of the class will be in April. Click on any one of our training classes down below, and it'll bring up the upcoming training dates, where you can see all under our events tab. But this particular 3-day class was something that I heard a lot of people talking about. You may know that we have a 2-day hands-on DVR recovery class where we teach best practices and teach individuals for the last 5 years every possible way to recover from a DVR, and in that 2-day hands-on class. And so this fundamentals class kind of was born out of that, where some people were saying, you know, some of our people really don't need that kind of depth on DVR recovery, but what they do need is they need to understand just the fundamentals, and how do we do some basic processing? How do we convert things? How do we get a bolo out, do some basic image clarification with Clear ID? So this new 3-day class is in response to those requests. Basics on video recovery, predominantly lecture, but all best practice stuff that is important on recovering digital evidence and digital CCTV evidence, of course. And then pretty much the remainder of the class is hands-on developing workflows. Students are encouraged to bring their own media. We'll have sample media and sample projects for you to be working on, of course, but you're encouraged to bring those troublesome ones so that we can all group think on them. That's the advantage of all of our training classes, is really working on things together and solving solutions. So I hope you'll take a look at this new 3-day class, the first one coming up in April, April 18th at our office. So I know we're pushing the time envelope here. So again, you know, take a moment to check out the website. Be sure you're following us on Twitter. Hopefully you've signed up for our listserv as well. So Twitter and our own customer listserv, email listserv, are where we release the most current information on all of our products. So make sure you check those out. And keep an eye out for that Omnivore Viewer release with the FFmpeg, because that'll be on the street pretty soon. We thank you so much for your time today. I appreciate everyone taking time out of their day to join us live, and certainly those that will be watching the recording as well. Thank you very, very much for your time. We'll be posting the recording as soon as possible, a little bit later today, and get that out to folks.
Have a good day.
Anything else, Charles?
Thanks for joining us.
Yeah, all right. Thanks, everybody. Have a great day.